Welcome to SuperTalk, the podcast that scratches your superhero itch. Just two suburban dads nerding out over superhero stuff on the small screen and the big. Buckle up, people. Enjoy the ride.
Welcome to SuperTalk, the weekly podcast dedicated to news and reviews of comic book media on the big and small screen. This is episode 159. I'm your host, Brian Professor Pettis, and with me, as always, my illustrious co-host, Titanium Tony Estrella. Titanian.
Professor, we got a lot to talk about, but how have you been?
I'm good. I mean, your
knees bothering you?
Yeah, I strained my knee over the weekend. It's a little depressing, but it's getting old, dude. That's what it is. It's you
telling me
you can't
to the choir.
You can't keep this engine running perfectly for this long, without a little bit of problems.
Well, you know what I told my doctor, right? I said, me coming in here is like
Did you say, could you only use one finger, sir?
Is that a fist? Whoa. Lube, please. No, I said, like coming into this doctor's office at my age is like bringing an old car into the mechanic. They're gonna find something wrong.
Find something wrong.
No question. They're gonna find something wrong with you. So,
yeah.
I'm sorry you did that. I had my first golf lesson, so yeah. I'm gonna start getting into the golf world, just so I can play with my son and hit some balls. I haven't played.
From what I hear, it was more of a proposal for a proctology exam, because they gave you a lesson and said, "Hey, for $1,500,
you need 13 lessons, and we're gonna work on this for $1,500." I'm like, whoa, time out. How about let's start slow and see if I like the sport. I mean, I don't know what I got until I got it, right? So I get out there and I actually on the course and play a couple of holes to see where I'm at. And then maybe I can take a couple of lessons here and there. But yeah, it's been a while. It was
well, it's a perfect time of the year to do it. I mean, it's something definitely,
my son is so into it.
Well, and he's home, and you get to spend some, it's one of the reasons why most of us that play it love it, is because you get to be outside and usually some decent weather, and you get to spend time with some people, and it's 4 to 4.5 hours of just distractions from the rest of the world.
Well, similar to the podcast, I'm going to lean a lot on the professor.
Let's hope it's not 4 to 4.5 hours of podcast, because that would be a lot.
No. But I'm going to lean on the professor from a lot of advice and some instructional, educational stuff. So,
all right, well, let's jump into our show today. And first thing off, we had our final 2 episodes of Daredevil Born Again on Disney Plus. Again, reminder for our listening audience, Disney, not Disney, but Netflix had released a Daredevil series, 3 seasons of a Daredevil series on Netflix many years ago, starring Charlie Cox.
Yeah.
The contract with Netflix and Marvel had expired. They sunset those shows after several years. Once the, I guess, terms and conditions of the use of those characters had expired, Marvel decided to bring these characters back, started a brand new season with Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio as Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, on Disney Plus. And this is their, now you could officially call it Daredevil season 4.
Yeah, it was supposed to be 18 episodes, and they had already started filming it, and then they put the brakes on it. They reevaluated it. They dumped some of the episodes and had to restart from the beginning. I guess they hired some new writers.
Oh, well, they hired the writers from Netflix, which is kind of ironic in that they tried to restart this series. And again, I think they had this is back when I think Disney was, and Marvel specifically Studios was in this, like, spend as much money as it takes to kind of produce content. And they were like, we're going to do Daredevil, bring it back for 18 episodes. And everybody's like, what?
Oh.
And it just wasn't going well. And Kevin Feige thankfully saw the writing on the wall and said, okay, let's slow down, back up, and start over.
Pump the brake. Yeah.
And they did. And there's been a lot. And so we got the last 2 episodes of the season, the last couple of weeks, and we do want to speak about them. But one of the things that you and I gathered while watching this season was that it seemed a little bit disjointed. very good, but there did seem to be some inconsistencies. And we did hear some of the original feedback and criticism of the original script kind of still showed up in the show. And we're like, okay, what's going on here? And now we know the showrunner did come out and confirm that when they went back and reevaluated and started refilming, they brought a new writing team in, and this was the writing team generally responsible for the first 3 seasons of Daredevil on Netflix,
which arguably is one of the greatest series. Yeah,
fantastic, which was a smart move by them. But they came back and they basically were responsible for 3 episodes of this 9 episode season. Episode 1, the first episode, the pilot episode of Daredevil Born Again, the new team filmed. Makes a ton of sense in the world because we had Foggy, we had Bullseye, we had Daredevil in his costume, it had everything. And then they moved into the regular part of the season where, several years later or like a year later, let's pick up and he's not Daredevil anymore and all this other stuff. And we're kind of like, wait a minute, wasn't that kind of the criticism of the first iteration, was that he doesn't wear the costume for like a really long time? And that kind of happened.
Yeah. The first reiteration was like 8 episodes.
Yeah. And it didn't happen. He didn't put the costume back on until the end of episode 6. And then again in episode 7, he had it on. But now we find out that episode 8 and 9 were also written by this team. And so these were all brand new episodes that were filmed. We had talked about in our last show that they kind of really fast forwarded through the whole Muse plot and killed that character off very quickly. And I think that was them hitting the fast forward button on like the old script. And then let's get to the real meat and potatoes of this series, which is Daredevil versus Kingpin, Matt versus Wilson Fisk. That's really where we're trying to go here. And let's get to it. And that's what we got in these last 2 episodes.
Yeah.
So episode 8 was really focused on Matt trying to figure out who was responsible for Foggy getting killed. He had always assumed that the Kingpin had hired Bullseye to kill Foggy.
Right.
And that was one of the reasons why he was kind of subvertively going after him in the background. And we find out that Kingpin had taken Bullseye and moved him into Gen Pop, tried to get him killed.
Yeah.
Because he wanted him to be gone.
Right.
But he survived that. And then we saw Daredevil went to visit him, which ultimately he ended up escaping after Daredevil to visit him because Daredevil, pounded his face on the table and loosened a tooth, and he used it to throw his tooth at one of the guards and completely escaped.
He spit his tooth into a guard's eye.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But it really shows you kind of how much of a threat he is. So Bullseye escapes from prison, but the whole episode was really centered around him trying to figure out what the heck's going on. Ultimately, he finds out that Vanessa, who had been running Kingpin's operation while Kingpin was recovering from being shot in the eye by our illustrious Echo.
No need to mention that.
She was running his operation, which we saw, when the series started off in episode 1. She had been running Kingpin's criminal underworld while he was gone. He finally
she was the
back.
boss. She normalized everything and tightened everything up and was making a lot of money without a lot of cruelty.
And it seemed like the criminal empire was doing very well under her leadership.
Very well.
But Matt finds out that she was the one who ordered the hit on Foggy, and he's like, something's not adding up here. Foggy and the case that he was working on, he was getting somebody exonerated, and he had a golden ticket that was going to get him acquitted. And so Bullseye ended up taking out not only the victim but also not only the witness but also Foggy, and he went to the Black and White Ball, which was Kingpin's fundraising ball, where he was basically strong-arming every wealthy person in New York City to invest in this Red Hook project that he had going on. He basically blackmailed swordsman and
Yeah.
saying him, hey, you're going to invest and you're going to back me. If
He knew he was a vigilante.
knew he was,
Yeah.
and but Matt goes to the ball. His girlfriend was invited, and he goes to the ball and confronts Kingpin. And Bullseye shows up at the black and white ball to kill Kingpin because he still holds Kingpin responsible for what happened to him. And of course, at the end of the episode, Matt jumps in front of Kingpin as
Takes a bullet.
the trigger gets pulled and gets shot in the shoulder and saves Kingpin's life. Funny way to end the episode, right? Kind of ironic. And there were some statements earlier in the episode of like, how do you really know when you're the good guy? Well, it's when the good guy, does something to help out the bad guy, even though he probably shouldn't, type of thing. Whoa. Still cooking with gas.
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
But yeah, that was
one of my favorite episodes.
It was great.
One of my favorite Daredevil episodes, including the Netflix series. I thought that episode,
you could tell it was different though.
It was the shot was different, the camera angles, the story, everything, the music, everything was different, and you could tell. Really well done, great episode. I really like that.
Yeah, it was great. And then we moved straight into the finale, the next episode 9. Pick up with Matt recovering in the hospital. Obviously, he'd been shot in the shoulder. He's recovering in the hospital. And he's trying to explain to his girlfriend and his business partner kind of, look, this Kingpin guy is a bad dude. Like, he's responsible for it. You guys should not trust him. They're like, oh, you're way over. You have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah. He's responsible. But his wife was the one who ordered the hit on Foggy. And they're like, what are you talking about? And he's lying in the hospital bed, and Kingpin sends his main guy, I can't remember his name, to the hospital to get rid of him.
Yeah.
Forces a blackout in the city, calls the power company, says, yeah, we're turning all the lights out. Complete blackout in the entire city, which this guy uses to go in and kill Daredevil, but Daredevil escapes, as you can imagine. But then he ends up sending the anti-vigilante task force to Daredevil's apartment to kill him. And Karen Page had called the Punisher and said, I think they're going to go after Matt. You need Frank Castle.
I need a favor.
I think they're going to go after Matt. You need to go make sure that he makes that alive. And he shows up, and that, I tell you what, that sequence inside of Matt's apartment where you've got Daredevil in his costume fighting the cops and Frank Castle just ripping them to shreds, shooting them in the face and stabbing them.
Yeah.
Brutal.
Matt Murdock trying to stop him and calm him down was like, Frank, stop. Don't kill these people. And
he say at one point, Punisher said at one point in time, Red, this ain't going to end the way you want it to.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not pulling punches here.
Right.
He was ripping these guys
to
shreds. Oh my God.
Great scene.
Oh yeah. And you could see why this was rated TVMA because there was blood, flowing everywhere across the screen as Castle was just ripping these guys up. But they end up escaping. Matt's apartment gets completely blown up by the cops. But they end up getting away.
I mean, ripping people apart.
Oh.
It was just such a the dynamics. I've always said this, the dynamics between those, the chemistry between them is off the charts good. And
two great actors
portraying
their characters perfectly.
Yeah.
And it really shows you the difference between the two of their characters in their mindset of how to solve the same problem.
Absolutely.
Matt has this inherent goodness to him, and he, as much as he wants to bring these criminals down, he wants to bring them to justice, and he wants to make them accountable for what they've done. He doesn't want to kill anybody. He just, and he has been forced to do so or close to forced to do so at times.
Frank is the exact opposite.
Frank is like, I am killing as many of them as necessary to get the job done.
Justice system isn't worth squat.
And it's quintessential Punisher.
Yeah.
I don't care who gets in the way. I don't care who's responsible. They're all going to die.
Yep.
And he said, and again, John Bernthal is just so good as this character.
He's a treasure. He's an
one
absolute gem.
Oh, it's awesome to see, and I'm glad he came back, and I'm glad he was part of this. It really, punctuated what this episode was all about. Well, then the interesting thing is that Karen and Matt end up trying to figure out what is happening here. And they end up going to look up Foggy's old case file for the case that where he got killed. And he was going to file a motion for dismissal. And they found out that this guy he was defending had been arrested in the Red Hook Marina, where, you know, Kingpin's been doing all this stuff all season long. And Foggy had found a piece of paper, parchment, from back in like the 1700s, where the Red Hook district was earmarked as a free port.
Right.
So it is not part of the United States.
Correct.
It is not part of New York City.
Right.
It is a free port. And therefore, any crime committed in that free port is not part of the United States justice system. So he basically had
not in the United States jurisdiction. So,
right. So there is no justice system there. So
that's why Kingpin wanted to.
So that was how he was getting his client off. But
Right.
when Vanessa found that out, she was like, oh, this now changes the narrative completely.
Correct.
And we now get the motivation that Kingpin and Vanessa have been using all season long for the Red Hook development.
Yeah.
They can now put all of this money into revitalizing and revamping the Red Hook, you know, port. And since it's a free port, they can launder money there.
Gambling,
they can
criminal activities,
smuggle goods in and out of the country. They can do whatever they want, and they'll never be prosecuted for it. So now they know exactly what the end game is for Kingpin.
Right.
Is he wants the Red Hook project to move forward because it is now officially a place where he can run his criminal enterprise through without any interference from the U.S. government.
Yeah, and that's the whole premise of the show. That's what it's leading up to. So it's brilliant. And I think it's smart.
And so Kingpin ends up going to Red Hook this episode, and they find out that the police chief was going to go up to the governor's office and, you know, basically rat him out. And Kingpin's like, oh, no. So they bring the police chief to Red Hook, and Kingpin kills him by ripping his head apart.
Ugh.
He squeezes his head so hard that it basically squashes in his hands, and it was so brutal.
Yeah.
And he'll never be prosecuted for the murder because it's happened to happen at Red Hook.
The ladies that working for Fisk in the mayor's office, the way she battled the decision to turn over the police.
She was contemplating siding with the police commissioner. Right. And going against Kingpin.
And she realizes how deep she is and what this guy that she's dealing with. And to show her loyalty,
she turned him in. Yep.
Brutal.
Great.
It was a great scene.
But both now Daredevil and Frank Castle know where Kingpin is headed and what he's doing.
Yeah.
Punisher ends up going to Red Hook.
Guns a-blazing.
He's like, I'm taking these MFers out. And literally runs to the anti-vigilante task force and kills 15 of them as he's walking through the hallway. You know, he ends up being overcome by just the sheer number of them that were there. They shoot him a couple times in his vest and all this, and they end up taking him captive. And then we find out that the reason why they've got tattoos of, you know, his symbol on them, and they're wearing vests with his symbol on them, is that they idolize him. They're like, the way that you carry out justice and your vigilante, it's inspired all of us, and we love you. And he's like, you guys are nuts. He says, I don't
know me.
He said, you don't know my pain. You know, it's like, you think you know my pain? You know, it was so
well written,
awesome,
great story. I mean, very well written.
But he's been captured.
Oh yeah, so far.
And then Daredevil ends up showing up and sees that there's, you know.
Yeah, Matt and Karen Page go there and understand that that's an army.
There's like 35, 40, 50, you know, anti-vigilante task force guys down there
to the team.
And they're like, there's no way. And Matt's like, I'm going down there. I'm going to take it. And she's like, you're crazy.
Yeah.
And she's like, we can do this. We just can't do this right now. And he ends the scene with, you're right. We need an army.
Right.
And completely sets up the second half of this season, or the second season of Daredevil Born Again, where we've all thought, and we've been led to believe that they are going to be revitalizing the Defenders, bringing back Luke Cage and Jessica Jones and Iron Fist and the Punisher, and they're all going to work together to take Kingpin down. And we see like a kind of an end credit scene where Daredevil walks out of the back office of Josie's bar, in his costume, and it's Cherry the cop, and then one of the other investigators that's not part of the task force, and they're all kind of now going to be part of his, like,
White Tiger's daughter.
They're all going to be part of this team.
Cops. There's like a handful of cops in there. The loyal cops,
that know that this is bad stuff that's going on, and it's kind of like leads us into the next season. Then we get a post-credit scene at the end of the show. Frank Castle, Kingpin, and that was one of the scenes we saw. Kingpin and Vanessa walking through Red Hook, where they had caged every one of their political opponents and the oppositions that were on the city council, the swordsmen, and everybody else were in these little cages inside of Red Hook, and Frank Castle was in there as well. And then they end up going downstairs to their table, having dinner and celebrating and everything else. But at the end credit scene, Frank Castle's in his little jail cell, his little cage, and starts talking up one of the guards, and hey, I want to thank you, and shake your hand, and just completely wrecks him. And then they're
what a setup for
assuming
Punisher.
that he's getting out.
Well, we know he's co-writing a Punisher series,
special presentation.
A special presentation.
Yeah, it's going to be probably an hour and a half long movie or special presentation they're going to do for Punisher, and it'll probably be the story of what happens after he escapes from Red Hook, setting up hopefully kind of a bridge to season 2 of Born Again, which they're filming right now.
Yeah, we've seen set photos of him and the black suit for Daredevil.
So
on the street fighting.
They're filming it right now, so we have seen some behind the scenes footage from their filming. Again, the big surprise that the community's all aghast about is Daredevil wearing the black costume with the double D's on the chest. Different types of double D's on the chest, but so and we're all excited about it. And again, we know that Kristen Ritter's been rumored to be linked to season 2 as Jessica Jones coming back. Again, we would love Mike Coulter to come back as Luke Cage. It'd be great. Casting. It'd be and Marvel has somewhat already confirmed that that's the direction they're moving in with this show. And
that'd be great.
Again, street level Marvel characters in a show like this is just so perfect.
How do you feel about this new Daredevil Born Again compared to the Netflix series?
I loved it, and here's the main reason why. Even though that it was a little disjointed in the first, I'll say episodes 2 through 5.5, 6 were a little slow, little like setting up plot and a lot of other. There was so much of that in the original Netflix series because we've talked about this before. They were 13 episode seasons,
contractually obligated for those.
And there was so much filler inside of each episode that it seemed to go by very slowly. This only being 9 episodes, even each self-contained episode had enough going on that it wasn't like you were just waiting for the next thing to happen. Which happened a lot during the Netflix series. Like, okay, where are they going with this? What's happening next? And then you're like, oh, it's going to be the next episode, right? Whereas that really didn't happen. Each episode was kind of self-contained.
Standalone, I agree with you.
And I liked it so much better. I thought the writing was great. I love Charlie Cox as this character.
The fact that it was for mature audiences added a lot to it.
They just did it right. And again, these are the types of Marvel characters that will bring people in. They're popular enough that people will understand who they are. They're well cast, well written, and they don't need major motion pictures attached to them. They can sustain a little series because it's street level Marvel characters, right?
Now, let me ask you this. Did you like Daredevil Born Again more than the Penguin, or the Penguin more than Daredevil Born Again? Which one's your favorite?
Gosh, that's a good question.
Very different series.
Similar in some ways. Well, I'd say I probably liked Penguin more because it was such a different twist on the character. This is the Daredevil. That
ripped straight from the comics.
We know, we grew up reading. This is a character we're very familiar with. There wasn't a lot of deviation from his backstory or his history or anything else. Penguin was a completely new portrayal of that character.
Elseworld.
And just something with, what Matt Reeves is doing with that whole Elseworld side of Batman. I think is really inventive. I like them both. I probably liked Penguin a little bit more just because it was so different.
Yeah.
But look, they're both great.
Agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
100% agree. I would lean towards the Penguin a little bit more, but this Daredevil Born Again was really good.
And I'm looking forward to the next season now. They
Oh,
did exactly what I expected them to do. Give me enough content that made it watchable, but also set up. We all know what the next season's all going to be about now. It's going to
yeah.
be about him gathering and building a team of vigilantes, or vigilantes plus cops to kind of help take down the Kingpin, and he's going to have to do it also as the hero or as the vigilante, but also as the lawyer, and it's going to be really good.
They did a great job of building that conflict between
Right.
the Kingpin and Daredevil, and that Muse was a distraction, in my opinion. A lot of people complained that they ran through that great character and they useless. I mean, it kind of like spent that great character pretty quickly, but it was more of a distraction and more of not really the main theme. The conflict between Daredevil and Kingpin, I think, was so in depth and so well written this show, and I think that that's what we're looking forward to in season two.
And
So, yeah.
D'Onofrio does the
Oh, he's
Kingpin
great.
so well.
Yeah.
He's disturbed
Hmm.
and angry, and
Smart,
but he's
calculating.
brilliant,
Yeah.
and in so many different ways. But I mean, it's just so well done. I really think they did exactly what I wanted them to do. If this was going to be 15 episodes, one season, I just think, they probably would have done what we've done with some others, where they would have done the first 9 episodes, taken a break, and then come back for the remaining 6 episodes or something. And now we're just going to get a full 9 episode season
Yeah.
two. And I can't wait to see the reunion of the Defenders
Yeah.
and what they're going to do. And Kingpin
The buildup was fantastic.
is in a
Yeah.
very big, threatening position right now. And I just think it's
More
been great.
importantly, interjecting the Punisher, and now we're going to get that special. I mean, it's going to be so great. So I'm really looking forward to that.
It's so fun to watch because, again, the Punisher had his 2 seasons of his own on Netflix as well, and we're going to get this special presentation. And again, John Bernthal's portrayal of that character is just so spot
Off the
on, and it's
charts.
perfect.
Yeah.
And I would watch anything that he does with that character, and I can't wait for the special presentation. Hopefully, it comes out later this year, which would be awesome. But I love the way that those two characters bounce off each other, because both of them know that they're each necessary in their own way.
Yeah.
But they can't stand how each of them go about their business, but they know they're both needed.
Right.
And it's like Daredevil hated that he had to depend on the Punisher to help him get out of his apartment. But he also knew that if I need to depend on somebody, this guy's not going to let me get killed. Right.
That's right. Absolutely.
So
Now, here's a great question. Do you see these two characters, obviously Daredevil and the Punisher, moving forward in the MCU in any other storyline?
So the challenge here is, and we talked about this, I think, last show. The challenge for Marvel is that the most important aspect of what they're setting up here with this series on Disney Plus is the Kingpin at the center of this criminal enterprise, and which he is one of the greatest criminals or villains, in comic book history. He's been the centerpiece of not
For
only
Spider-Man as well.
Spider-Man, Daredevil. He's been the centerpiece of so many, comic books. And I think that's such a important part of this story. And you can't use him in the movies.
Hmm.
They don't have the rights to the Kingpin character in the movies. So the chance of seeing Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin show up in an MCU movie,
In Spider-Man 4.
well, it could show up in Spider-Man 4.
Okay.
Because Sony owns the rights to him
Okay.
in the movie side. So he could show up in Spider-Man 4, but for him to show up in an MCU movie that's not Spider-Man 4,
Mhm.
right, would require Sony to give Marvel the rights to use him somewhere else.
Got it.
They have the rights to use him on TV. They can't use him in the movies. A Sony movie, they can use him, which is Spider-Man 4 will be a Sony movie.
In the comics, was the Punisher and Daredevil in Secret Wars whatsoever?
I don't think so. And again, there's 2 iterations of Secret Wars. I'm almost positive they weren't in the first one. I'll have to go back. I have the second one at home. I have them both at home, but I'll go back and look if either of them showed up in Secret Wars. I'm going to say I doubt it.
Mm-hmm.
They're not at that level as far as superheroes are concerned. They are literally like street level vigilantes. I mean, that's what they are, right? And they never were part of the Avengers. They never were, part of any like big team. I think at one point in time, Punisher may have been part of like Midnight Suns, to some aspect, but if you're going to shoot vampires and werewolves, I mean, who cares? I mean, that's kind of makes a lot of sense, right? But
give me more Frank. Give me more Punisher. Give me more.
I would, the cameo that Charlie Cox did in Spider-Man Far From Home was awesome. I know it was just so good. It got us all excited about him coming back as that character.
Yeah, no question.
For him to show up, for Daredevil or any of the characters to show up in Secret Wars or Doomsday, I'd be highly doubtful that happens, but it wouldn't surprise me if they had a cameo or something, and something's happening in New York and they show up somewhere and, it wouldn't surprise me, but none of the other heroes know who they are. Yeah. They've never interacted with them, which leads me to believe that Marvel's kind of isolating them as this street level, version. And frankly, I think that's fortunate or unfortunate, whether you like it or not. I think that's their plan for Moon Knight too. I think he's going to be more of a street level kind of character. Yeah. I don't see him being in Secret Wars, although he could be. I just don't see it happening.
He could definitely be in Midnight Suns as a larger production,
for sure,
as a movie. Yeah,
for sure. And if Marvel decides to do a Defenders movie at some point in time, which I wouldn't put it past them, but
after they do Champions and
get started there. Get started on the Champions. All right. Well, so that's it for Daredevil. Born Again. If you haven't watched it, and again, I've been trying to encourage my son Charlie to watch it, saying you're missing out. This is so good. And he goes, yeah, but I feel like if I don't go back and watch the original, that I'm missing out. And there's some truth to that. I mean, not that you have to. If you know the Daredevil character at all, and you didn't watch any of the Netflix seasons, you'd be fine picking up with Daredevil Born Again. You'd be fine. It'd be entertaining. You'd watch it. It'd be great. But having watched the original 3 seasons of Daredevil definitely gives you context into the character and the relationship between him and Karen Page and Foggy Nelson and Punisher and all the other characters that are part of this.
If you're a novice to the character, period, you probably should. I mean, it kind of goes over his origin stories and flashbacks and how he was taught and how he learned to fight and how he honed his senses. And so it helps for sure. But I still think you could get away with.
I think you don't need to watch season 3.
No.
But season 1 is, as Tony mentioned, really him and his mentor Stick and how he learned to kind of fight and build his fighting skills and why he's such a good fighter, even with his senses, goes into that a lot. And Elektra is part of that as well. And then season 2 is him and the Punisher against the Kingpin, which we've seen in this series too. So that's what my recommendation would, at least watch Daredevil season 1 and 2. But I want people to watch it because I just think it's just good TV. Yeah. Like, I'm sad it's gone. Like, we're probably not going to get the next season till this time next year, and I'm sad I have to wait a whole year to get that.
Agree.
Yeah. All right, let's move in. We only have a couple of news items this week, ahead of what we're anticipating as being the launch window for the Thunderbolts movie next week. We learned that Marvel has decided to do screenings, pre-screenings of the movie at select IMAX theaters around the country. They did a promotion through Fandango, and not everybody got it, but some people got this invitation where it's like, hey, if you would like to be one of the first to see the Thunderbolts movie, click here. And tickets sold out within minutes, from what I understand, that people who got the email, tickets were sold out very
Nothing
quickly.
in our city, nothing near Washington, D.C.
There is. Yeah, I told you, next Wednesday.
Oh, I didn't. Yeah. I just saw Philadelphia, L.A., like major cities. I didn't see anything in.
Yeah, there's one near to it, but it's next Wednesday, which is the night before the movie comes out. But they're starting these pre-screenings,
which is fine. The night before, that's fine. I get that. But the Tuesday, the premiere in London, Tuesday,
So
a
the
week and
premiere
a half.
in London is tonight,
Yeah.
right?
Or
And
today. It was
today.
today.
And the Thunderbolts pre-screenings start this evening, and we're filming our episode here on Tuesday, the 22nd. So they're starting pre-screenings tonight. Now, if you recall, we've had the opportunity to pre-screen or see some of these movies in the past. It's not often that the studio will do something like this where they release the movie to a pretty broad audience, a week before the movie comes out.
Right.
It doesn't happen that often. The one time that we had a chance to see a movie, it was the Flash movie, and I remember you and I saying this at the time. This says one of two things. It says they're really confident in this movie and how it's going to do. They don't care who sees it early. They think it's going to do gangbusters.
Yeah, they're not worried about
spoilers.
Or
it says this movie's going to tank. We need to do whatever we can to get any kind of buzz out there early, because
asses in seats as early as possible,
and try to generate some buzz, which what they did with the Flash movie, which ended up being a big bomb. I think it's the former for this movie. I think Marvel is so confident in how well this movie is going to do. They want people to start talking about it early, so that people buy tickets, hear the buzz, buy tickets early, go see the movie once or twice or whatever. They want people talking about this movie before it premieres next week.
Geek Nation will be all over it no matter what. And the nerds in our arena will be there no matter what and are going to see this. I think the buzz that they want to create is the novice fans that's iffy about the movie. I don't know, to get them to see the movie and get in theaters. But I've heard nothing but great things about it.
Yeah, and here's a great example. My wife, who is I say she's not, I wouldn't call her a big fan of the Marvel movies, but she likes some of them. She had zero interest in seeing the Captain America movie. Zero. Like, had no interest whatsoever. But she wants to see this movie. And I think this is the buzz that we've been hearing, is that this cast is strong. Florence Pugh and Sebastian Stan are two of the hottest actors in Hollywood right now. Both, Florence Pugh and Sebastian Stan both nominated for Oscars, and they're very popular and very well liked across Hollywood. The rest of the cast is pretty good as well.
Yeah.
The supporting cast is very good. And the plot of the movie seems to resonate with some people, of like this ragtag band of, pseudo heroes that are trying to work together to fight a larger threat or whatever.
It's got wide audience appeal for sure. But I'm just wondering how well it's going to do in the box office. I think it's going to be a banger. I think it's going to be a sleeper. And I think
it's going to come close to the $1 billion mark.
I think that once word of mouth gets out, I think their second weekend, you're not going to see that drop off that you did
with
in Captain America. Yeah. Now, Captain America had the luxury of nothing else was out. Nothing for several weeks. It kind of rode this wave of I'm the only thing in the theater. Yeah, I'm the only game in town. So that got very lucky. Captain America got very lucky. I think this is going to have a little bit more competition. But that being said, I got to be off social media.
That's
listen,
the downside.
Make a statement. Come on. Don't be a dick about this. Don't spoil the movie on social media.
You can't say that because it's going to happen. I don't care. Look, you could tell 1 million people, and if the 1 out of 1 million decides,
do you think 1 million people are listening to us?
Right, but I'm just saying, if the 1 out of 1 million decided to post everything, it's been ruined for everybody.
My mom and your sister are the only ones that are probably watching or listening.
Well, but look, here's the downside to it. I think the good part of this is, I think Marvel is supremely confident in the quality of this movie and how well it's going to do. That they not only are not worried about what people's early reviews will be, they want people to see this and get those reviews out to get some buzz going for this movie. The bad side of it is, to your point, the post-credit scenes will drop on the internet tomorrow.
I hope not.
We'll get all of the spoilers and Easter eggs and everything.
Scenes, and apparently the last one leads into whatever
Doomsday,
next movie, Doomsday
or Fantastic Four.
And it's going to be, from what I saw slightly today on the internet, it is people
Don't
are
tell
saying,
me anything.
I'm not going to say anything. Marvel's back. This is the best thing they put out in years. It's so different. It's not your typical Marvel cookie cutter movie. It's completely different. It's so great.
Yeah. And look, if all I saw over the next week and a half was non-spoilery impressions of the movie,
That'd be great.
happy. Don't give me any cameos. Don't give me any plot points. Don't give me the ending of the movie. Don't give me the post-credit scenes. But just tell me what your look, I love this movie. You're going to love this movie.
Yeah.
Florence Pugh and Sebastian Stan were fantastic. You know, the supporting cast was fantastic. And it's really good. It fits into what Marvel's doing with Secret Wars. It's awesome. That would be great.
Right.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
we can't listen to any of that because there's going to be leaked everything out there.
Come on, Hollywood shills. Don't be a dick about this, please. I mean, that we talked about it last episode. This was one of our favorite things about Deadpool and Wolverine. We were fortunate enough to get to see a pre-screening of the movie out at Comic-Con before it came out, or the night
it premiered.
The night it premiered. We were fortunate enough to see that movie. And it was so great because there were so many surprises for us because we had gone blank, and they had done a great job at keeping those surprises. I just hope that holds true with this movie. I want surprises in this movie, so I'm going dark. I'm going dark on social
unfortunately,
media. And it's going to be hard.
Literally, there's going to be so many thumbnails and so much clickbait on every social media site out there. You're going to have to avoid it. It's going to be hard, and unfortunately, you know, I'm going to try to avoid it, but it's going to be virtually impossible. I know, you know, and that was one of the things that you and I said about Deadpool and Wolverine was that the luxury of us getting to see it in a captured audience at Comic-Con the night it premiered was such a blessing to us because we knew walking around that place the next day, it would have been all everybody was talking about.
Yeah.
And we would have gotten everything spoiled. Have you seen it yet? Oh my God. Wait till you see it.
Yeah.
Guess who's back?
Yeah.
Oh my God. You know,
it would have sucked.
Yeah. All right. And if you haven't seen, and I know Titanium, he's on the dark web, so he sees all this stuff. Not surprising to everybody, but they're starting to leak set photos from the filming of Doomsday. As we talked about on our last episode, you know, they did the big casting announcement, the big viral video that Marvel Studios did to announce the cast of Avengers Doomsday. And the reason they did that was because they were beginning filming for the movie in London. Well, surprise to everybody, set photos are now starting to leak from London of the filming of this movie. And what I'll say is I'm not paying too much attention to it. Frankly, you know, every set photo is going to have a full like 20-minute video of somebody trying to break it down and tell us what it is. I'm not taking too much stock in it. And frankly, I'm not even watching it because I don't want to know too much about it. But what I'll say is be careful at the same time because Marvel is known for
deception.
Deceiving the audience through just random people showing up on some set and people taking pictures of it, or maybe even them taking the pictures and leaking them online to deceive us. All of us remember they did the same thing for Deadpool and Wolverine. There was a picture of Cyclops in a full comic book accurate costume on the set of Deadpool and Wolverine. Everybody's like, oh my God, Cyclops is back. Wasn't in the movie at all.
Right.
Wasn't even there.
Yeah. In his comic book accurate. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So they did that on purpose. And Marvel does this in their trailers to deceive us and everything else. So just be careful. You know, go if you want to see these things. I'm trying not to. I mean, there's been plot leaks and, you know,
not reading
script leaks and all that. I don't look, I don't want to know. I just want to see the movie next year. That's all I want. So just be careful out there, people. Like, I mean, you know, if you're that interested, I think there's probably two types of people out there. There are people like you and me that would rather be pleasantly surprised than have something spoiled ahead of time and have it ruin our experience.
Yeah.
And then there are people that want to know everything they can way before it happens because they think it's cool to know it. And they just think, well, I don't care. I just want to know. I just want to know. I'm not one of those people.
No, you don't want to go into The Sixth Sense the day it opens in the theater knowing that Bruce Willis is dead.
What? What?
Yeah, I'm sure you've never seen that movie.
What?
Yeah.
Earmuffs. All right, well, let's jump into our top of the week, brought to us by our friends over at Studio GG Studios, home of the man band, corn on the cob.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Studio G.
Yep.
We want to review the latest trailer for the Fantastic Four First Steps, which came out last Tuesday or Wednesday, one of those 2 days last week.
If the teaser whet your appetite, this trailer was a banger. In my opinion, I felt this trailer elevated the excitement for this movie tenfold. I was excited during the teaser. I'm a huge Fantastic Four fan. I was excited during the teaser, but I felt like the teaser was off a little bit. Like something didn't feel right.
Didn't really give us any indications as to what the movie was about.
Right. And it kind of hid a lot of things. And it just gave us a little taste of this and that. And I was like, looks pretty good. I like the thing. I like the way he looks. He's comic book accurate, blah, 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 blah. Outfits are kind of cool. Still iffy on the casting. I was still a little bit iffy on the casting. But then this trailer came out and kind of gave us an insight, at least to Johnny Storm, of his attitude and his banter back and forth. I thought that was really revealing, and it set me at ease that, okay, he is this cocky, funny kind of.
I don't think the cocky part is true. I think
they've
chosen to take a different direction with Johnny Storm.
I think they've chosen to take a different direction when it comes to his womanizing and that situation. But as far as his attitude and his kind of like, I don't know, like spunky kind of, I still think he was cocky the way he said the line that he said in the trailer to Mr. Fantastic or Pedro Pascal.
But I thought it was done in a very playful way. He basically said, "You're going to be the best mother ever" to his sister. And he said, "You're going to be the greatest dad." Let's be honest. You're way above your level.
I'm just kidding. You're way out of your league.
You're way out of your league.
Yeah.
And I think that they've purposely,
but we are going to be the best uncles.
Yeah. I think they've purposely ramped back some of his, like, if you look at the Chris Evans portrayal of Johnny Storm in the original Fantastic Four movies by Fox, very comic book accurate. Playboy, arrogant, would pull pranks on the Thing all the time, like was just a complete
child.
Cool.
Yeah. Child.
Very immature, but also, very arrogant and cocky. And that's the way he was written in the comic books. I think they're dialing that back a lot in this movie. I think he's going to be, young, maybe a little brash, but I think he's going to be much more subdued. I just feel the way that Joseph Quinn is portraying this character. I think this is a Matt Shackman choice. I think they're trying to make him more likable, like try to get people to like him as a character versus dislike him, but also like him at the same time, which is kind of what the Chris Evans version was. Right.
I mean, the Human Torch, man, he's one of the most popular comic book superheroes out there. I don't know how much more they want people to like him, but we'll see. I'm excited to see that. Yeah. But anyway, that portrayal of him kind of eased me a little bit, as at least there's some substance to him out there, and he's not just this sidekick, part of the team, but not have any kind of impact. I thought it was great. And we learned a couple of things, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, so the first teaser really just kind of, I think that what it did was establish that this is a period piece. It's happening in an alternate version of Earth in the 1960s era, and the Fantastic Four are very famous, and they're somewhat celebrities,
and they're known,
and kind of went a little bit into their backstory. And I think, and Kevin Feige said as much, this is not an origin story. This is not an origin movie. I don't know if we're going to see the first trip to space where they get their powers.
Right.
I think we may see pieces of that through flashbacks.
Yeah, agree.
Which is fine. Yeah. I don't think you need to send them off into space and have them get their powers and come back, and just like they did in the first Fantastic Four movie by Fox. I don't think you need to do that. We know the story. So just show a few flashbacks of them, of that happening to them, and that's all you see. And I think they're going to show that.
They address it. They say,
the first time we went up,
time, we didn't have these powers, and now, Ben's a rock and blah, 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 blah.
But I love the way that they're doing this, and that, Matt Shackman's come out and said, this is an alternate Earth. there are no other heroes. There's no Avengers. There's no Spider-Man. There's no Iron Man. There's nothing. It's
Right.
just the Fantastic Four. And they think about 1960s America here. Astronauts were celebrities.
Oh, no
They
question.
were rock stars. They were
course.
as famous as anybody because they were the first ones to pioneer, the
Space.
exploration of space. And that's what he's trying to portray this family as, is they were famous already. Like, they were famous for being astronauts and exploring space and being, Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards, was famous for being so smart. They came back to Earth and got these powers, and not only were they still famous, but now they were heroes.
Right.
And it's just like exploded their fame.
Yeah.
Right. And so we got to see some of that in this new trailer. We did get confirmed that Sue Storm is pregnant.
Yeah.
Which they kind of teased us last week, but we did get confirmation that she finds out she's pregnant. She's going to have a baby. And everybody's excited about it.
Yeah.
So, but she doesn't look pregnant yet. She's just learned this.
Big reveal there. We know Franklin Richards is going to be coming into play here.
At some point in time. In this movie, we don't know. I mean, it doesn't seem like she'll have a baby, and it's not like
the length of
takes
a movie.
nine months, right?
Right.
But at some point in time, for sure. We then see their life as it is, as famous celebrity astronauts / superheroes, interrupted by the arrival of the Silver Surfer. Now, this is the female Silver Surfer, a kind of an alternate Earth version of Silver Surfer, Shalla-Bal, which is Norrin Radd's wife from their home planet, the original Silver Surfer. She's the one who ends up becoming the Herald of Galactus instead of him.
Yeah, the comic book, she obtains the Silver Surfer powers for a little bit. Not a whole lot. I mean,
but they're completely basically gender swapping.
It's not gender swapping.
No, but
Juno was another Herald of Galactus.
It's not Norrena Ladd. It's
right.
Norrin. It's Norrin Radd's wife was chosen as the Herald instead of him. So that it's just basically, it's not gender swapping. It's saying, well, instead of Norrin Radd giving up his life to save his planet, it's his wife that does it, and she becomes a Silver Surfer.
Right.
So it's just an alternate storytelling.
Right.
Right. So
and I have a theory on that. I think they're doing that not just because the Silver Surfer's already been done, but I think they're saving that character.
Oh, yeah.
For instance,
totally.
They're saving Norrin Radd, the OG, the real Silver Surfer, in my opinion, one of the most arguably one
I
of
think
the most popular.
That character will show up at some point in time in the MCU, and they don't want to burn him.
They don't want to burn him this early. So why not use an alternate Silver Surfer or an alternate Herald?
My preference would have been for them to use a different Herald and not do a different storytelling of the Silver Surfer, but use a different. I mean, Galactus has had many Heralds over the years, and why not use a different one? And if you want to make it female, there's plenty of female ones, right?
Yeah.
So you could have chosen any of them. So that's what would have been my preference, but I don't care. The fact is, their life gets interrupted. The Silver Surfer arrives and announces the coming of Galactus to consume their planet.
Yeah.
And they're shocked by this. And Reed Richards is taken aback. And he basically says, he takes blame. He says, what did he say? He said, we stretched the bounds of space and they heard.
Yeah.
So he feels that, his journey into space and what he was doing with space exploration and maybe what ends up happening to them stretched the bounds of space, and somebody found out that they knew how to do this, and they're coming now to consume their planet because of it. And he takes the blame for that. We do see all of them using their powers at some point in time in the trailer.
How do you think Shalla-Bal looked? How did you think
thought she looked great.
I thought it was fine too.
Great.
I don't know why haters are like, everybody's drinking haterade on this Silver Surfer.
I thought she looked great.
And they really shouldn't.
I thought she looked
Let
great.
it play out, people.
Yeah, I thought she looked great.
I thought it looked great.
I just hope they don't do the same thing they did in the Fantastic Four 2, Rise of the Silver Surfer, where Silver Surfer eventually comes to grips with the fact that these are good people and I need to save this planet from Galactus myself. I just hope they don't do that. So I hope that doesn't happen. We see Reed Richards finally in the first teaser. We saw the Thing. We saw Invisible Woman using her powers. We saw obviously the Human Torch flying around, but we didn't see Reed stretching powers. And I think part of that was because the CGI wasn't done yet. Now this trailer is showing Reed hopping between some rocks using his stretching powers. Really kind of cool there. But we see him. They're also back in their astronaut uniforms, and they're going to head back into space for some reason, which I have some theories about that. But he does announce to Earth that we will protect you. We are
Earth's protectors.
Well, and the Silver Surfer asks them when she first comes in. She says, "Are you this planet's protectors?" And they said, "Yes, we are." And he was like, "Prepare for the coming of Galactus."
Yeah. Your Earth has been checked off.
Yeah. And the final scene of the trailer is a giant-sized Galactus stomping through the streets of New York City. Very ominous. But I mean, I think, and I don't know why they did this early on, but we knew Galactus was going to be part of this movie. We didn't know how much of a part of this movie it was. And it now seems like a big part. Like this is the movie. The movie is the Fantastic Four trying to save their planet from the threat of Galactus and the Silver Surfer. That is this movie.
Oh, well, we also know that Mole Man will be in this movie at some point in time. And
have we gotten confirmed that that's who?
I think, yeah. What's his name is playing? I don't know if he's playing that. That's not been confirmed. But the fact that Mole Man is in this movie has been confirmed. And I think they battle him at one point, and that's also gains their popularity. And we see some of their powers during that. I think that's going to be kind of like the catalyst. But I think the big bad is going to be Galactus in this movie. Yeah.
Look, we're looking forward to it. I think this movie is going to do very well.
Are you looking forward to Thunderbolts more or Fantastic Four?
I think I'm looking forward to Thunderbolts more just because of the proximity of the movie.
Okay.
I think once I've seen Thunderbolts, I will get very excited for Fantastic Four. Look, the fact of the matter is we know how important these characters are to Marvel. We know how important they are to Kevin Feige personally. Like he's very invested in the success of this movie. We know all 4 characters are going to be in Doomsday. We know that for a fact because they've been announced as part of the cast. So
we also know that there are no cameos in this. You're not going to see any other heroes in this. This is a standalone story for the Fantastic Four.
And I'd love to see how this crosses over into Doomsday. Do they somehow, leave their Earth and come to our Earth? Do they stay where they are and Dr. Doom, kind of pulls them out?
There is a shot of the spaceship in space and a planet being consumed and being
that's
devoured.
One of the theories I have. I don't want to speak about it. You and I can talk about that offline, but I do think, whether their Earth gets destroyed and they have to find a way to, save their own family. I mean, that would seem like a very selfish thing to do, but it could be a possibility.
Yeah, there's a bunch of theories out there. They could have been off Earth to battle Galactus away from Earth, keep him out of Earth. And that's kind of when they came back. That's what kind of happened. I think they lose. I think they lose in this. And I think it would be smart to have them lose in this and have them try this redemption arc.
Wow.
Titanium
dropping theories, people.
I think so. I think they lose, and I think this redemption arc of them will continue through Doomsday. So we'll see.
All right,
but I'm more excited about Fantastic Four now than I was after the
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if you thought there was a marketing engine behind Deadpool and Wolverine, wait till this marketing engine gets going.
Oh, yeah.
This thing is going to eclipse anything and everything we've ever thought of as far as trailers and promotions and cross promotions with restaurants and McDonald's, Happy Meals, and all kinds of others. It's going to be
Captain America
everywhere.
Was everywhere.
Yeah, but this is going to be off.
Captain America was everywhere.
Yeah, but this is going to be off the charts.
I hope so.
Like Fantastic Four is going to be a different level.
I love the indie style of marketing that Thunderbolts have done.
Oh, yeah. It's been great.
It's been amazing. Great marketing in that movie.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, sir. Professor, let's ring the bell. School's over.
All right, that's it for us this week. We'll be back next week for more Super Talk. To get in touch with us on social media, hit us up on email, supertalkpodcast@outlook.com or at supertalkpod on Twitter. Until then, stay super, everyone.
Corner on the top, the man.